August. Brooke, we are prepared for roll call whenever you are.
Apologize.
You're all right.
Getting all our technology started. Josh Wilbur,
Here.
Jerome Vernon,
Here.
Thomas Stark,
Here.
Owen McCall,
Here.
Jerry Wade, Ken McWilliams, and Mike Pittman.
Here. All right. Everybody should have received the months from last month's meeting. Are there any additions, corrections from those minutes that anyone has? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve.
I so move.
I'll second.
Josh Wilbur,
Approved.
Jerome Vernon,
Approved.
Thomas Stark,
Approved.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approved.
Okay, with that, we will get into this night's meeting. We have 4 applications on the docket for the evening. At this point, I'll go over how the meeting will go so that those of you that have not done this before will know what we're going to do. I'll introduce the application, and at that point in time, we'll have a person that's representing the application come up to the podium, state their name and address, and then at that point in time, Brooke will go over the overview of the application. The applicant will then be given time to add to that if they would like to give more information to the board for their consideration. The board will then have some time to ask questions or state any concerns they might have with the application, to have some discussion with the applicant. And then at that point, I'll ask the audience if they have if there's anyone in the audience that wants to speak for or against the application. We'll then go into what we call findings of fact, which is the guidelines that we utilize to help us make our decision. And so each member will discuss their view toward the findings of fact. Once we go through that, then we will have a vote on whether or not to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the application. So with that, we will get into our first application, and it is at 310 Jefferson Street. We have someone that's representing 310 Jefferson Street. You'll come on up to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening, my name is Jim Pruitt. I reside at 123 Central Avenue. The property we're here to talk about this evening is at 310 Jefferson Street. That is a former office of Spence Snyder.
All right. Brooke?
This circa 1830 contributing federal building is zoned Central Business District. The COA request is to install 6/6 vinyl windows and shutters with dogs. And to note that the windows in this application were mentioned that same windows had been approved at 123 Central Avenue in 2012. I did make an error saying those were not approved, but thanks to Mr. Pittman providing minutes for that meeting, those were approved on June 25th of 2012. That's all I have. Or, I'm sorry, let me show you the pictures.
Thanks. You're fine.
So, building as it exists currently, this would be the proposed configuration of the windows with the shutters. And the trim is to be painted black. So the architectural features is not a part of the application. That was an error on my end as well. That's all I have.
Jim, do you have anything to add to?
No, I think those windows that are in there do not appear to be the original windows. With circa 1830, we believe that those were probably 6/6 or 9/9 lights at some point. The windows are a very nice window. They come already pre-painted black. They have one IGU in each sash, but they are external grids, not the cheap internal grids. These are very nice, very expensive windows. So they would be the external grids that are raised up, and they're not internal to the IGU. I think that since the application here, the lintels above the windows, we have now noticed, I believe, those are wood. We'll probably want to replace those. those with limestone also and paint those black. So it'll be, commercial hardware door. We've already have, we own our offices at 304 Jefferson Street, which that was the old Bill Sporting Goods store. The front of that building was changed probably in the 40s or 50s, and it is, has the just big plate glass windows. But we purchased 306 Jefferson, and we've already gone through the application process and the grant, base grant application. That building was falling down. The whole back of that fell out. So we have purchased the 306 building, got it stabilized. We plan on having the same look eventually on that portion of the block there with all the same windows. So we own 304, 306, and 310. So we want to use, in the 306 building currently has some vinyl windows in it. So it's my understanding and talking to the coordinator that we can replace those without any application in the 306 building. So we're going to use those same windows throughout the block. These will be 6 over 6. You can see 30, 308, and 310 are the exact duplicate of each building. 304 and 306 are exact duplicate of each building. So it's two duplexes basically, or two buildings. We haven't purchased 308 yet, but we're in hopes of doing that. Make the whole block look very similar with, and I believe that probably one of the areas downtown that does need some attention.
Any questions from the board?
So, with the shutters, is there any historic evidence that shutters were actually on
Yes,
that building?
There were some dogs on different windows there. There was evidence that there were.
And they're still there.
There may be some dogs, and I forget exactly which building they're on, but I suspect that they
I
were
think
on
they're
all
on
those
310.
buildings.
I went and looked. Yeah, they're there.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've already got approved to put the shutters on the 304, the 306 building that we're redoing. So we're gonna be the same shutters, same colors, and same windows. On the 306 building, we're gonna put 9 over 9 because the windows are a little larger. This 308 and 310, the windows are a little smaller, so we think that the 6 over 6 will be much better.
So your shutters will be wood?
Wood shutters,
And they
yes,
will be-
absolutely. They'll be attached to dogs, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So go through to me why you want to go with vinyl over aluminum clad, which is more preferred.
For your board, yeah. I think that these particular windows are very, very good design, very good cost. I mean, they're $1,250 a piece installed. But that's, we're getting them right here locally in town, so we like trying to do business here locally with Glass Unlimited. So it's what they have and what's in the budget.
Jim, are those the same windows you got in your
Yes, currently.
personal home?
Yes, that's at the house at 123 Central that was approved by this historic board several years ago. We do have screens on those windows. I was not gonna put screens on these windows. My wife likes to open up the windows from time to time at the house, so she insists on having screens on those. But the reason that those were changed to 123 Central is the windows were originally taken out and they used 2 windows from the side of the house in the front, and they were very disproportionate in size, so we had to make those at the residence at 123 Central a larger window.
Well, why don't you just restore the sashes that are in there? They don't, I mean, at least from the street, they don't look like they're badly deteriorated. You
Yeah.
didn't provide any pictures to show us that they're greater than 80%, which is what the guidelines demand.
Right. Well, I don't believe them to be original. Those windows there, I don't believe to be original.
Well, what's original in this town at this point?
Right. So those are probably more of a 1940s, 1950s sash.
So they're historic, just not original.
Right. We're going with the look with the 9 over 9 and the 6 over 6 lights, putting those in.
So do those windows actually work, Jim? Have you opened them? Have you not opened them?
I think they have been opened, maybe. I don't know. I can't tell you. Now, we haven't done any work upstairs, so I don't know. I don't know of any reason why we would have had them open at this point.
And are you replacing, because it's hard for this, let me see the picture, were you replacing the upper glass above the door, the transom?
Yes, that's gonna be, all aluminum, commercial hardware. It will be black, have a side light and a transom.
So the whole look of that will change, or it will actually, the look will stay relatively?
Well, that's a residential style door there.
Because, yeah.
That's a residential style door, no, so it'll be a commercial hardware, similar to the doors you came in through the city hall tonight.
Right.
So it'll be a commercial, aluminum, commercial door
Right.
with black, will be painted black.
Okay.
And how will the new side light look?
We have that approved in the 304 property. We're gonna do the original side lights. I don't know if this would have originally had a side light on each side, with, you know, being very small. Not really sure how that originally would have been. But, side lights will have the transoms in them, the transom grids, just like the windows.
So there will be 2 side lights.
Don't remember what we talked about ordering for this one here. I get a couple of these mixed up here. We discussed that. I don't remember if there's enough width on there to have 2 side lights or not.
So you've got all 3 of these properties side by side, and you're gonna try to maintain a uniform look across all 3 of these buildings?
Yeah, I have 3, and there's one in the middle, this 308 that you see. I do not own that. So I have 304, 306, 308 is owned by somebody else, and then I have 310, but we're attempting to acquire the 308 property.
And the reason you wanted to go with the vinyl windows is because you just personal preference?
Yeah, personal preference, and that's what we're gonna use in the 306 building. I want them to match, and they have vinyl windows in there, so we don't have to have the approval to replace those, is my understanding.
And what color are those vinyl windows?
They're gonna be black. They're all gonna be black. I want the whole block to have the same kind of appearance.
Right, right. How many windows are in that building that already has the existing vinyl windows? How many existing vinyl windows are already in that building?
I believe there's 3 in that,
3.
3 or 4. So there's 1 on the main level, and I think 2 upstairs, might be 3 upstairs on that building.
And I'm sure you probably know about the whole vinyl window thing, and how it's not an approved material.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very familiar.
Right, right. Have you
Yeah.
considered maybe applying for a PACE grant and
I
going
did.
with the aluminum window?
I did apply for a PACE grant. It's been approved.
For this building,
Yes.
for vinyl?
The PACE grant application that I have, was right here. Yep. Here's the, signed by, City of Madison signature right here.
Ordinarily, they don't approve vinyl, do they?
No.
No.
Nicole was in that meeting. She's the one that signed it. That's the, I can find the, install 2 double hung windows with insulated glass with simulated divided lights at 6/6.
So did you state to them the material, Jim?
Not in the application, I did not, but we had a conversation about the 306 building. And I told her I was gonna use the same windows in the 306 and in the 310
And
building.
308, or 310. What about the big window?
It'll stay. It's already right now it's a thermal pane, it's an insulated glass unit. We're gonna put the wood below it to simulate the federal style. What I particularly like about these buildings, they are the federal style that has not had the updates to them, to the soffit area, but put the wood down to simulate the federal style, and then if for a business, there needs to be a place to put some signage on that particular window. Yeah.
So
Well,
you're
no,
gonna
yeah.
recess? There'll be a recess design in that bottom?
Yeah, we're gonna do something, however, I don't know if it's recessed or raised out or however they do it. Yeah.
Just, adding wood or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jim, we've been fairly consistent with trying to ensure, especially street-facing windows are either wood or aluminum-clad wood. Would you consider doing those 2 windows in aluminum-clad wood?
I don't know what they cost. What's the cost on those?
Brooke, is that something you could help them look into?
Sure, absolutely. I spoke with someone today, that's working on a house on the corner of Vernon and West Second. They put aluminum clad windows in, and I believe that they were telling me their price installed was around what you're quoting. I could be incorrect, I'm almost certain that's what he told me. He said it was right at 1,300.
Yep. I asked the installer, they did work down here in the 400 block of West Main Street. And those windows, I think, were twice the cost that I did quoted for what I looked at. And you know, the buildings down there where they redid the Sutter Smith properties.
Mhm, yep.
And I believe those were twice what I was quoting.
Yeah, I'm not sure where she got those.
I do.
Same place?
Same contractor.
Same place, okay. Any other questions from board? All right, any questions, comments from the audience?
I have mine.
Oh, yeah, you guys got that?
I'd sit on that little table.
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry, I put it right there,
Oh.
Jim.
Sorry, I
Thank
didn't
you.
see that.
All right, so any questions, comments from the audience? All right, hearing none, Mike, you wanna take us through findings of fact?
Jim, are you also adding doors to your application, or has that already been approved?
They were in here.
They were in there.
Mike.
They're in there?
Yeah, those are on there.
Yep.
I didn't see it on the finding of fact, so,
Yeah, I don't think it is,
okay.
but doors should be,
Okay, I'm adding it, I'm adding it.
okay.
The doors were shutters, windows, gutters and downspouts, doors and entrances, metal. With proposed, it's existing material is a metal residential door. Proposed material would be an aluminum, commercial grade storefront door.
Yeah, this is real, is this considered both commercial and residential, since he's gonna have it upstairs?
There will be no residence upstairs.
No residence, all be commercial,
There's
yeah?
not any, it's never had, well, I say never. There's not any evidence of any plumbing upstairs, so it was painted or wallpapered, but it hadn't been anybody lived there for a long, long time.
I did not include the doors on this because that's a staff reviewable item. If you would like, you can include it in your motion.
So did the staff approve it?
Yes,
So the staff already approved the door?
correct.
Well,
yes.
then, yeah, then we don't want it in
But-
our motion.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah, I knew,
Good job, Mike.
I got one right. Okay, someone, architectural features is off, okay, shutters. Since you're putting up wood, and Jim, there's obvious evidence there was wood shutters on these from the dogs that are currently there, that's no issue using wood, and you're gonna match the shutters, so. I believe, page 55, that meets our commercial guidelines. Windows.
That's residential.
Excuse me, there are no commercial guidelines for shutters.
Exactly.
So, you're good to go, Jim. Windows, page 56 to 59. If you look at those, our guidelines on page 56 to 59 for commercial guidelines for windows, had a little bit of discussion about the fact that the guidelines do not favor vinyl. However, these guidelines were written in 2009. Jim has used vinyl windows, in fact, the same windows he's gonna be using in this building. And I had an opportunity, I don't know if anybody went to Riverfest this weekend, but I did. Jim's house is right there by the park, and they look pretty good. You really can't tell them from the aluminum clad. They seem to be a very good quality window, so I do not have an issue with those. Our guidelines don't prohibit or cause a violation if he uses vinyl, but we do prefer the wood or the aluminum clad. It is said preferred. Therefore, as far as our guidelines go, I find he does meet our guidelines. We'd like him to be a little more close to them, but he does meet our guidelines for the windows. And the door and sidelines have already been approved.
Jerome? You don't wanna agree or disagree with?
Agreed.
Agree, okay. Tom,
I disagree.
do you wanna state why, or do you just wanna?
I just think that, you know, we have been fairly consistent across the board with commercial and with residential, street-facing windows, and I think we need to be consistent with that. That's why I just wondered if you would even consider going with an aluminum, clad wood window or a wood window.
I'll check it out.
Okay, I mean, you know, everything else looks great, and I'm excited to see the work. The guidelines strictly say no vinyl, so, that's where I get hung up, Jim.
Owen?
Well, before we even get to vinyl, you know, the guidelines also say that the sashes, the windows that are gonna be replaced have to be greater than 80% deteriorated. If they're less than 80% deteriorated, well, certainly, I mean, from the street, it looks to me like they're at least, I mean, they're way better than that you're supposed to restore those. So I don't even know why we're even talking about vinyl or aluminum clad. Those windows could just be renewed. That's what the guidelines specify.
So then I assume you disagree with what was originally stated.
Yes, so I disagree. I do not think that this meets with the guidelines on the windows. Now, the shutters, I guess traditionally, businesses did not have shutters. It's more like a residence, but looking at this building, you can see that the dogs are still up there. So it also says in the guidelines, although I can't remember the exact page, that if you have evidence that the building had shutters, then you should go ahead and put shutters up. So I think it's fine, even though these are commercial, as a commercial buildings, it should be able to have shutters, since it clearly did have them earlier.
Yeah, you know, findings of fact, the guidelines, you know, for me, it's interesting because we're having to possibly think about a couple of buildings to the side of this one. And with one of those having vinyl windows that we're gonna have to accept because somebody put vinyl windows in at one point, that makes it more difficult for me. And, you know, wanting to maintain some sense of consistency, you know, in buildings as well. I do agree with Mike on the point that vinyl, you know, it's not preferred, and it's not a material that the board is, you know, tended to approve. It has approved them in the past for other buildings, and so it's not the vinyl thing. It is something we have to consider what's best for these buildings as they are being worked on and looked after, you know, by investors, obviously. You know, this is a very prominent area, Jim, you know, and that's what's, you know, difficult for me. Central Avenue is one area, but this is right by the courthouse. And to me, we have been pretty consistent, and Tom's stated that, you know, the Main Street area, Jefferson Street there, you know, this central area of downtown, we've been consistent in maintaining with the materials that are approved, and that is wood or aluminum clad. And so I'm inclined to go that direction because of the fact of where it's located. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we approve the application submitted for 310 Jefferson Street with the aluminum clad windows as submitted, with Jim to check on the metal clad wooden windows as well, and the wood shutters that are obviously missing to be replaced and tie into the other projects he's doing along the same street.
Do we have a second? I'll second the motion. Motion's been made. Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Do not approve.
Jerome Vernon,
Do not approve.
Thomas Stark,
Do not approve.
Owen McCall,
Do not approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
So Jim, with that, it has 4 against, 4 do not approve, 1 approved, so that will not allow you to get a COA with the current statement of materials. So if you are willing to look at that and come back with something else, I'm sure that this board would be more than open to it. But currently cannot move forward with replacing the windows with that material at this point in time.
Same do the rest of the work, correct?
The shutters, well, actually, because it was in the motion and not,
That's what I was gonna ask you, and he also had mentioned,
you
that he
can do
wanted
the
to
door.
do the lintels. He wanted to add the lintels to the application as well, replacing those from wood to limestone, so I didn't know how
We
you
did not
wanted to
consider
handle
the
that.
lentils in the. So I'll ask the board, do you want to would you consider doing another motion on the lentils, or should we, I guess we gotta talk about the lentils though.
Mhm.
So we need to talk about the lentils, do a findings of fact on them, and then would you consider taking the shutters away from this application separately with the lentils?
Can we do that?
Well, we possibly could, I mean, we're allowed to reconsider that,
So we're gonna combine the lintels and the shutters
but not the windows.
but not the windows?
Right.
Okay.
Why
Okay.
not? What, do you have a problem with that?
No, my understanding was that just from previous sessions
Mhm.
in previous months that we weren't allowed to do that, and maybe I'm misremembering.
We can go, because we did miss the lentils, so we do have to at least talk
Yes,
about the lentils.
Yes, we do, yeah.
So we can reconsider the shutters in this if the board is willing. If you're not, then it's already been not approved. What's your thoughts, Brooke? Can we reconsider that? I assume we
I
could.
believe you can,
I think we can.
I believe you can.
All right. So, Mike, you did finding of fact already. Would you do finding of fact on the lentils? And you already did it on the shutters, so no need to go redo that one.
And Jim, you said you were gonna replace those with, they were wood
Limestone.
and you're gonna replace those with limestone?
Correct.
Okay.
I believe they were probably replaced, it looks like there were a couple 2x6s or a couple 2x8s stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
They were probably replaced when these current windows were installed.
Okay.
And what page would the lintels be on?
It would be architectural features, and I believe, I apologize, I think,
31, 33?
I
31,
believe
yeah.
so.
Yep.
Okay. I actually have architectural features for another application, if you, I can skip past and put that
Is
out.
that commercial
Um,
or residential?
it's residential, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we'll let them.
Okay.
Jim's not adding to the building where none existed. He's replacing missing or severely damaged. Do we have any evidence that there was?
It just appears to me like,
There
they
was-
were more modern lumber.
I would say based on that evidence, that he's replacing what was probably there, because limestone was used a lot. Can you replace the lentils and not replace the windows at the same time? Wouldn't that destroy the windows? I guess that's my question.
Well, yeah, he may not be able to move forward with them if he's gonna destroy the windows, but at least he'll have them approved. It would be, we wouldn't have to worry about bringing that up again.
We had a lintel replaced, but it was wood with wood
Yeah.
at our house. I don't know if you can do the limestone in there. Yeah, I need to check, but
Maybe difficult, is what I think.
I think it's historically correct. In architecture, you see a lot of limestone lintels around town, so I would say it would be
Or painted
approved.
black anyway.
You can also check on, we replaced our wood with wood, but it was pretty expensive. They had to go outside the country to get wood that was good enough to use on that stuff, so.
Jerome, do you agree or disagree with it?
Well, I think I would agree to to limestone lintels as a replacement, but the problem I have is that I don't think it would certainly wouldn't be an easy job attempting to replace those lintels without also replacing the windows simultaneously. Well, it's effectively probably limestone to begin with. And as Jim indicated, it looked like they were replaced at the time that they changed the windows. So I would agree, and perhaps you could get staff approval on aluminum clad windows and take care of everything so better.
Tom?
So we're discussing the shutters
lintels.
and the.
Well, the shutters are already
Okay.
discussed, just the lintels.
Just the lintels?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the limestone, like Jim was saying, he's going to paint them black. I don't have a problem with replacing the wood. And I was also, as I was looking at it, I mean, those windows are, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years old. So they could have totally reframed that space. And most likely there was a lintel up there made of something probably of stone, so I think.
He thinks back here saying he believes it to be the original wood, lintels, and he believes that the, sashes that have been changed, probably had 6/6 originally, you think?
Oh, these do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that may have some original mold in it.
Well, we gotta, just to make sure we got everything on record, we gotta have you come up here and Link, if you wanna talk to it, you can, but.
I was talking, just.
Oh, okay, I just wanna make sure we don't have a,
Yeah. Wasn't something wrong.
okay, so you're good with what Mike, okay. Owen?
Yes, I'm fine with limestone, that'd be great.
And if we get into the middle of the project and, you know, we find out that they're original wood, we'll attempt to salvage it.
Yeah.
I don't wanna spend money just to be spending money.
Yeah, and I'm good with the limestone, if that's what you end up doing, and changing that to limestone as well, on the lintels. So at this point, we would entertain a motion for the lintels and the shutters, to be considered.
Why don't we, if we're only gonna approve metal clad wood windows, why don't we put that in motion as well?
Because he hasn't asked for aluminum clad, he didn't say he would do aluminum clad.
He said he'd check on it though. That was in my motion.
Well, doesn't he have to agree to that though before we put it in the motion?
Yeah, he would have to agree to it, Mike.
Jim, are you willing to agree to the aluminum clad wood windows?
Jim, can you come up? That way we get it on, we get it in the microphone, please.
Hello? Okay, the question is, will I agree to aluminum clad wood windows or wood windows?
Before he gets ready, yeah.
Yeah, before I know what the cost is. I will either put in, we'll go away from the vinyl windows. I'll leave the original windows, or we'll put in some vinyl clad or some aluminum clad wood windows. We'll check into that. Or we'll leave the ones that are there. So take the vinyl ones off. Find it, you know, sometimes you always have to draw a line of where you're gonna start, but there's lots of vinyl windows approved all around town. Our courthouse, our county courthouse, got a vinyl roof on it, vinyl dome. Okay, so it's sometimes these are not the original windows in there. We're trying to preserve a building. Somebody can come back later and put some nice windows in it. This is not permanent. You can replace them all the time. You can't tell by driving by. If those windows were up there and you walked by, you would not be able to tell that they were vinyl windows. But I will take that off the table, and we'll either leave the original windows, not the original, but the windows that are currently in there that are not original, and we will attempt to redo those in some fashion, or we'll check out some other options.
Wait, for
That-
what?
You'll go aluminum clad, right? You'll
Yes.
go aluminum clad,
Yeah.
if not.
So let me rephrase my original motion.
Yes,
Are you ready?
yes.
Okay. This is a new motion. Based on modifying the application, we're looking at page 31 for the lintel, being limestone,
If necessary.
if necessary. For the shutters, no issues, he's going to replace them with wood. There are already evidence that shutters were up there. The windows, Jim is willing to either rehab the existing windows or replace them with metal clad wood windows. Based on what his further investigation as the construction moves forward.
Do you have a second?
Second?
All right, Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approved.
Jerome Vernon,
Approved.
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approved.
All right. Jim?
On the-
COA in the middle.
What's that? Yeah.
Yes, and you begin
And
working.
it's just a sideline, I think, as a point of reference, I don't think it's this committee's, job description to stop at properties that are currently under construction, to try to enforce building permits and codes. So that, we had a situation with that. I'll leave it at that, but, I don't believe it's this committee's position.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, our next application is 736 West Main Street.
Good afternoon, I'm John Gray, 736 West Main Street.
All right, thank you, John. All right, Brooke? you wanna-
This property at 736 West Main Street, owned by John and Lisa Gray, is a circa 1830 contributing federal zone specialty district. The COA request is to build a cover over the existing patio of wood, asphalt shingles, stone, and hardy board. You can see the current pictures of the patio to the right is what he's wanting to build a roof over essentially. And these are the proposed design specs. And the site plan. That's all.
John, do you have anything to add to what Brooke said?
Not really. I mean,
It's a beautiful home, by the way. I think it's
What's
one
that?
of my favorite homes downtown.
Well,
So
thank
it's
you.
beautiful.
we're happy with it.
All right, does the board have any questions? John?
So the siding that you're planning on using for the concealed structure, is that siding, are you selecting that siding to match the existing siding of the house?
There's not going to be a lot of siding. It's gonna mainly be, if you look at what's going to be visible from the front is basically just almost a gutter that comes across the side that's visible from the street. And when I'm looking at the drawing, I'm looking at the 3D print on the center there. That side is all you'll be able to see. So I don't know the proper term, but the fascia or whatever there is where the gutter would hang, that's not going to be siding.
Just the pony wall, right?
What,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the pony wall, we have not decided whether it's going to be, it would either be hardy board painted to match, or it would be rock, or it would be something to match the existing foundation and the arc of the landscape that we have around it. The plan would not be use what's on the house.
So on the east side of the
Yes.
patio area, that's what you're going to put a wall, half a wall or a wall to enclose that? Is that what I'm seeing there?
Only, it really is where I'm going to put my grill. It's going to be a half wall, and it's only going to be in the corner section. So if you're coming from the east, you will just see a half wall. We'll leave that open because we want to get that air through there, and we want to have that visibility, and it will be the same way on the back side of the house.
So as you're driving up, if you're coming up through your driveway, there'll be an open area, and then the half wall for your grill and cook
Yes.
center, basically outdoor cook center, and then the back side will be open towards your, of course, towards your driveway.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I have no further questions.
That's all. Anything else? All right, hearing none. Any questions or comments from the audience? All right, well, hearing none from the audience, then we'll go to findings of fact. Jerome, you want to start us off with findings of fact on this one?
Okay, finding of facts, residential guidelines for new construction. Porches are preferred to decks. Decks are acceptable in the rear facade. Decks on the side of the building are also acceptable if they're not readily visible from the street. That decks should be located in the rear of the building, if the building is on the side, if built on the side of the building, the deck should be screened from the street view. Really only have the little cook center, I don't think that's much. Wood decks should be a simple design, square wood base, spaced on more than 3 inches apart. Decks should be stained or painted to match or blend with color of the building. Is there another page to that?
No, this is it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Do you believe it, that his project falls within the guidelines?
I believe it falls within the guidelines.
Okay. Tom?
I agree for the same reasons.
Owen?
I agree also, and I think the pony wall screens it, helps screen it from the street,
Yeah.
so it's completely within the guidelines in my judgment.
That's what I was gonna say, Owen, you took my words. Mike?
I agree for the same reason. I wasn't gonna say that, but I agree for the same reason.
I do agree for the same reasons. So with that, we'll accept the motion.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to John and Lisa Gray for the proposed cover over the existing patio to be composed of wood asphalt shingles, stone and hardy board located at 736 West Main Street.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approved.
Jerome Vernon,
Approved.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Mike Pittman,
Approved?
and Thomas Stark.
Approved.
All right, John, you'll get your COA in the mail. You can begin work as long as you have the correct building permits and all that, so congratulations.
All right,
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, our next application is 208 Ferry Street.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Mike McClellan. I live on 208 Ferry Street.
All right, thank you, Mike. Brooke?
This home, owned by Mike McClellan, is a circa 1920 contributing craftsman bungalow. It's owned historic district residential. His COA is to replace the existing single car carport with a 20 by 21 by 7 double carport to go in the same location as this one. You can see to the left the existing, to the right the proposed new carport. That's it.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board?
How'd you get along with just one car for so long?
Well, I've got some space there I need to get rid of. It's just wasted space.
Bicycle, right?
Bicycle, well, I can get golf cart in there.
Yeah, hey, at least it looks good. Anything else from the board? Any questions, comments from the audience? All right, with that, we'll go to findings of fact. Tom, you want to take us through?
Yep. New buildings should be compatible with adjacent buildings in terms of height, and it definitely, your new construction meets that guideline. Setback, I'm assuming you're going to follow the same setback that you have with the existing one. So that meets that. Scale and proportion, it is a little bit larger, but it looks like it will fit into that space very nicely. The roof form is the same, it's just a larger,
It's A
yeah,
frame.
yeah. And the new garage should be built at the rear of the dwelling. It's, are you going to start it where the old one was?
Yes.
Yeah. So that
Hopefully
meets-
right up against it,
Okay,
yeah.
and I think that meets the guidelines.
Owen?
I agree.
Mike?
I agree for the same reason.
Jerome?
I agree for the same reasons.
I too agree for the same reasons. With that, I'll accept the motion.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Michael McClellan for the proposed project to increase the size of his metal carport from 20 by 21 by 7 from the existing 20 by 14 by 6. And that should say replace probably instead of increase.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approved.
Jerome Vernon,
Approved.
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approved. All right, Mike, you're gonna get a COA and ML. You can begin your project as soon as you, I don't think you need, I'm not sure you need a building permit for this, so. I think
Got some type of permit, I don't know what.
No.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you're good to, you're gonna be good to go.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, our next application is 613 Mulberry Street. I've seen this face before here.
Judy Kaler, 414 Broadway Street.
How are you doing, Judy? Brooke?
This home at 613 Mulberry is a circa 1850 contributing federal zoned historic district residential. COA request is to build a capital above the front door. And these are the schematics of what it will look like. And that's all it is.
Judy, you got anything to add to it?
No, I just wanted to dress the building up a little bit.
Right, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? All right. Any questions, comments from the board?
I have one.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, what's the material?
That's what
Well,
was
I
gonna
wanted
ask.
to use something that wouldn't rot,
Yeah.
and my carpenter suggested something like Versatec. I don't know what that's made of.
Hmm.
So it's
But it
it's a
would be-
man-made material then, yeah.
But it would be painted, to match the other trim on the house.
Do you know what that is, Brooke?
It's a polymer, like, have any of you gentlemen seen the Trex
Yeah,
decking?
that's what I was thinking.
Same,
in my head.
basically
Okay.
same thing. It's a 60% plastic and 40% wood fiber that's mixed in. So it's a product that's been used in a lot of different ways and has been approved by other historic districts in the past for decking and
Okay.
for architectural projects.
It has been approved for architectural features
Not
like
in
this?
Madison, but in other
Well,
districts.
yeah, that's what I mean, though.
Yeah.
But for something like this, they've approved something like that?
Yes, Indianapolis did, when I did my research on that, and then, I believe it was Greensburg, Indiana, I believe, and I could be wrong, but there was a list of like 3 or 4 different, municipalities that did approve that material.
Do you have any reasoning why they approved that compared to other materials? Just, they see it kind of like hardy board and kind of like
Basically.
that? Okay.
And I can't speak to them, but just from what I was reading, yes, it's been approved because it's going to be painted typically anyway, so it's not, it's treated like hardy board.
Okay.
Sounds like more like smart siding.
Yeah, that's,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's obviously gotta be easy enough to work with to create that. So, I mean, because, you know, you have to be able to cut it and, somehow put it all together. And the corbels, they're 8 inches, are they 8 inches down from the top?
I think the whole thing is, I forget, was 16 inches high.
Mhm.
Okay,
So each square was, what have I got on there, Brooke? Each square is 6 inches, is that right? Or 4?
Yeah, it would be,
36, yeah, it would make
6.
sense.
Was it 4 inches?
it'd be each square is 6.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions or comments from the audience? All right, hearing none, we'll go to findings of fact. Owen?
Well, the guidelines are not specific on something as detailed as this, but since we're informed that this is material that has been used by other, approved by other historic boards, and since the purpose of it is to avoid rot, to make it last longer, and certainly there was some capital like this there previously, so she's just putting back what was almost certainly there in the original house. Oh, Link is shaking his head.
Yeah, well,
I really don't have any evidence that there was something there before. I just thought that, I looked around town and I found some houses that had pediments above the front door, but not above the windows, and obviously somebody in years past had that same idea, and those were older homes like down on West Second Street. So that's why I thought it would be consistent with other homes in the city of Madison.
It seems, like good logic to me, so, see, to me, I would say it's consistent with the guidelines.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons.
Jerome?
I agree for the same reasons.
Tom?
I agree for the same reasons.
I too agree for the same reasons. Kind of interesting to always hear about new material though that is out there.
Plus it's lightweight.
Yeah.
So we have to-
And I think that, one of the things this board will have to consider at some point is 3D printed material,
Yeah.
because this is becoming a much greater usage by a lot of manufacturing, so it's something we will have to look at and look into.
Well, I think, even on the Benjamin Harrison house, they were having trouble with the balustrades all the way around the front. And I'm almost positive, because we lived in that neighborhood, that that's what they replaced it with.
3D
And you
print.
cannot tell that it's a man-made material.
It's some neat stuff. and
Yeah.
It does look very, very close to what was there, so. All right, with that, I'll accept a motion on this application.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Judith Kohler for the proposed capital above the front door located at 613 Mulberry Street.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approved?
Jerome Vernon,
Approved.
Thomas Stark,
Approved?
Mike Pittman,
Approved.
Owen McCall.
Approve.
All right, Judy, we can
Thank you very much.
continue
Thank you.
forward with it. Thank you for what you're doing. And with that, finishes out our applications. So now we'll go to, we'll go staff COA since it's up there, right?
Oh, well.
So we can do that.
It's been a busy month, which is a good thing. We always like seeing that. So at 709 West Main, many of you will know Crystal and Jules' old location. We have new owners and they are opening up a restaurant there. So we staff approved a sign that's going to be a neon sign that's going to have a vintage look. So they're kind of going after the, almost like the Hinkles type, look on a vintage sign. Mark Paterna at 923 West Main, got a COA to replace the 4 front vinyl windows with 1/1, with aluminum clad Quaker windows, 1/1. Rick and Kathy Taylor at 1010 West Main Street, replaced a picture window on the southern facade with a 2/2 aluminum clad wood window to match the historic opening. Replace a full light front door with the original historic wood and glass door. Haley Holy Cross and Zachary Nicholson at 765 West 3rd Street. They are replacing the front door with a 6-pane top light door, replacing vinyl siding with hardy board, replacing windows, front windows if they cannot be restored, with wood or aluminum clad of the same size and design. Their goal is to restore as much historic material as possible. So hopefully they are able to do that. They're also going to replace the gutters with new of a similar design. John and Erin Lederman at 1109 West Main Street are replacing vinyl siding with wood siding, replacing the front door with a period and design appropriate wood and wood screen door. They're uncovering the transom above the rear door and replacing the front picture window with a new aluminum bond picture window. Alvin Hagen LLC at 223 West 1st Street is replacing an existing casement wood window on the south and southeast side of the home with wood or aluminum clad wood windows of same design, shape, and size. Angela and Philip Laub at 213 Jefferson install iron fencing, wrought iron fencing along the west back alley and retainer wall. Coco Heath and Hillary Steinhardt at 324 Mulberry Street, got approved for a sign. One is going to be a 36 by 27, centered above the front door, which will be flat on the building. with a black metal brace, and two 12-inch painted with gold leaf detail signs on the front windows. Kathleen Chambers at 317 Mill Street is replacing front wooden porch steps with antique brick porch steps. She actually was able to get, I guess you'd say salvage brick, but it is historic brick that she is, matches the house very well, that she's using for that. And Chad Gray at 928 Park Avenue is going to reopen closed entrance doors on the east side to create two egress or ingress doors to meet state fire code. And then our August 2020 COA review, these three were all done according to COA. The first two you can see, Lisa Riggio at 704 West Street. It was a denied COA to install vinyl or Fibrex windows. That was not done. There was one window that had already been installed, and going back to the minutes, one window had already been installed at the time of the meeting. So that vinyl window does remain, but no other ones were put in afterwards. And then Sharon Cagliano at 102 Searing, she was denied a COA to install vinyl or fiber core windows, and that has not been done. And then Wade Investment Partners 301 LLC at 301 West Street installed a new steel door behind a metal sliding door and added a new door opening underneath a window on the patio with steel door to match others in the structure, and that was done according to COA. That's all we have.
Good work. It was a busy month.
Yeah.
A lot of investment, which is great. Lots of people doing good things, so. All right, so we do have some old business to discuss. These were the new rules and procedures that we wanted the board to consider for revisions. So if the board wants to discuss this, this is the time to continue to discuss.
Well, Wayne had pointed out, if I'm remembering correctly, and this, what I think he said last time fits with my understanding, that our rules of procedure need to really be, go through the city council, right? We can't just come up with our own and just implement them. Is that correct?
I think this was something, Brooke, would you mind commenting on this?
Sure.
Because I think you've talked to.
Devin and I have spoken about that, and the printout that I gave you last month, it stated the specific ordinance, and if you give me a moment, I can pull it up, but the ordinance states that the board is allowed to create its own rules of procedure, and so Devin, from what I understood when he and I discussed it, under that clause in the ordinance, you are able to amend the rules of procedure without going to common council first.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. That's good news.
Any other questions or comments about that? I mean, I don't personally have any more.
So what would be the next step then to reinstate that?
If the board chooses to reinstate that, the next step would be voting at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So for the September meeting.
Okay.
And then from there on out, we would go with the new procedures.
So then we're talking about reinstating the letter notifications, and then also.
Tom, you just want to go ahead and read it?
So the first one was to reinstate certified letter notifications to neighbors of HDDR applicants. Will ensure the community and neighbor notification more effective than posted sign or legal notice. Reduces complaints about projects because neighbors concerned. Community members have a chance to speak on the project and potential issues that may potentially be worked out prior to the meeting, and encourage community input. The second one was to display the COAs for the duration of the project, to reduce calls to the preservation office about whether projects are approved or not, clearly demonstrates to the community that projects were approved, and also serves as a helpful reminder to others in the historic district that most exterior facade changes require approval, and theoretically would lead to an increase in compliance.
Anything else from the board before I ask for?
Are we discussing?
Well, give them the, yeah, we're discussing stuff, yes.
I think it'll do just the opposite. My feeling is that you're driving the cost of application up quite dramatically with this procedure. And if I'm not mistaken, before someone get a building permit, they've got to have a C of A. So I guess from my perspective, I'm trying to understand what these changes are. I guess I wasn't here when they were drafted.
Okay.
So we currently, they are required to display the COA, right?
No, not a COA.
Not COA.
A sign.
They're required to put up a sign that states that you have requested
Got it.
the COA, but once you receive the COA, you can have everything down.
Okay.
But you are required to post your building
A
permit.
building permit, you have to have a building permit.
That has to be clearly posted. The COA, the application, if I remember right, you know, my memory, I'm getting older now, guys. The application and the sign has to be visible from every public right of way. So it means if you got an alley, you got a sign for that side. If you got a street in front, you got a sign for that side. So, I mean, it's not just one sign you have to post before the meeting. You got 15 days before the meeting, you've got to post these signs. So I guess and it's also published in the paper, correct? So it's still published in the paper, and it's published on the website. So, and I would probably challenge, whether or not the internet has had more wide acceptance for the newspaper. I look at newspapers, what's happening with them, they're slowing down. But I would think we would be better served putting our money into trying to drive more use of the web, because the applications are there with the pictures. Brooke, you do a good job in laying that out. You can't get that from a letter. And if you wait till the meeting, it's kind of late to get that. So to me, I would think we would do much better trying to do more with the web. And also, if I'm not mistaken, the state, when they do major programs, they publish things in the paper, put it on their website, and then also put it in the library. Make it available when they want to go, if somebody wants to see what's going on, they put a complete description of the project in the local libraries, which would be Hanover and Madison. So I guess, I'm not seeing, you're, and I've done a lot of rehabs in this town, and I spent well in excess of $100 on some of these certified mails, only to find out the green cards weren't returned, a lot of them, and they don't have to be. I mean, that's just it. I mean, I guess I'm struggling with this change in process, having had the experiences I've had, because I've worked in both scenarios, and I think the sign works much better.
I think the one thing you talked about with the paper, the good thing about the paper nowadays, it's not just a printed edition, it's a digital version.
That's
So
true.
you're actually getting web, if you're posting on the city's website, you're also getting it posted, the paper's posting it on their digital website as well, so people can find it in either place. So I mean, that's, I say that because I think the paper, for what they do for us, it's a major service for us as a city, and that helps us a tremendous amount. So that kind of goes to, I mean, it really does go to, putting some back into what you're saying there, Mike. So.
But we're not doing the registered mail thing.
No, we're not doing
No,
registered.
right.
Two forms of public notice, the paper and
Yeah.
signs,
Right.
should be adequate in my opinion.
So at this point in time, I'm going to give the audience a chance. This is just discussion again, and then next meeting we would vote on, decide if we're going to take a vote on this or not. So it's been brought to our attention, so I think we probably ought to discuss it now. This is the second meeting, so we would entertain a motion next meeting to do this. But anyone in the audience to speak for or against this? Yeah, come on up.
This is not a new issue. This has been going on since the new ordinance was passed in 1982, and it was really not until 1987 that the board first attempted to essentially amend the ordinance and add additional requirements to the application process by adopting a resolution or rule. And the ordinance does, I mean, the state enabling legislation, both the state enabling legislation and the local historic district ordinance do outline powers of the board, and it says that the board may make rules specifying certain types of architectural improvements, et cetera, rules for its own operation, but that refers only to the board's internal business. I mean, I've never seen anything in either the state law or the ordinance that empowers the board to add to requirements of the application process without getting the city council to amend the ordinance. And in fact, under powers of board, at least what I'm reading, the second statement in fact says the board may not make any requirement except for the purpose of preventing development, alterations, or demolitions which are obviously incongruous with the historic district. So, I mean, the changes that you're talking about, they may be good ideas, but as some of the discussion that is taking place tonight, these applications are not secret by any means. They're advertised in the newspaper as required. They're on the city's website with all the information about the details of the applications. So I mean, I can understand the staff wanting to cut down on phone calls, but I don't know that adding additional requirements to the application process is going to accomplish that. So I go back to saying that if in fact you think that there need to be additional requirements added to the application process, whether that's making people post signs or sending out letters or jump up and down in the street, it's the city council that needs to amend the ordinance to accomplish that. So this discussion has taken place, as I say, going back to 1982, the first time the board, when the new ordinance was passed, part of the reason this was thrown into question is that instead of the new 1982 historic district ordinance replacing the old system, which was all administered by the Board of Zoning Appeals, when the staff at that time started operating, instead of paying attention to the new ordinance, they basically just continued doing things the way they always had since the 1960s. And that was never what we intended as the people who were involved in drafting and advocating for the passage of the new ordinance. It was to replace the old system with a completely new one that was supposed to operate differently. And at least in my view, it's never quite operated the way we thought it was going to. So regardless of how you handle this particular issue or these issues, I would like to say again that instead of looking at all these little issues piecemeal one at a time, I would like to urge you to go back to the idea of doing a top-to-bottom comprehensive review, first of all of the ordinance, to make sure that it is finally brought into conformance with the state enabling legislation. And then the guidelines, which, this is I think the third time that even the guidelines have supposedly been going through a review. And each time, for one reason or another, that process has been derailed. So I would just rather instead of picking through all these individual issues as they come up, maybe now is the time, especially since you've already taken the step of updating the survey, which had not been done since 1982. I would like to ask you again to consider the possibility of doing a comprehensive review again, but this time seeing it through to completion, instead of letting it get derailed because of staff changes or whatever has derailed it in the past. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Link is right. First time I was on this board back in, I think it was 2011, seemed like a long time ago.
I don't remember.
We undertook a review of the guidelines, and we never got through it. And it's a very comprehensive process. This process we're using now with the signs was passed by the city council. And this was presented and passed. So I think whatever we do has to go before city council, as like you stated, so. But again, this is one piece of it, so, and I believe we are doing a pretty comprehensive survey right now. correct?
So the idea is to do a comprehensive survey, talking with the mayor. We want to do a comprehensive survey. We want to get that done. We want to have that information. The mayor then wants to actually form a team to really look at the ordinance, because the ordinance is really what should be our guiding factor for the guidelines. And so to me, we're going backwards if we do the guidelines, then a survey, then the ordinance. It doesn't make sense. And so I do think we need the ordinance to be looked at by a group of individuals that then will present that to the city council of any revisions, changes to that. Once we know what that is, then we take what has been done, and you know, there's the past president that used to sit here, you know, that board, and Owen remembers, we went through a very extensive, you know, process to go through the guidelines, and we can take what was done then, and then whatever changes in the ordinance, and make those changes and those revisions, and hopefully have a little bit faster process. And Mike, I know you were very involved in that as a city member, as just a, you know, a citizen. And so I think we have some groundwork which is there, and it's not been forgotten, it's not been lost, but I think we have to go through this the right way so that we have good information, good data, so that we can update the guidelines the correct way that they need to be done, based on other things happening for us. Because there was a lot, I think when we went through that process, there was a lot of opinions. And what we don't want to try to get into is too much opinions. We want to have more fact and data that's added to the guidelines that helps us change the guidelines in the right way. So that's what the process is currently being laid out right now by the mayor for what we're wanting to do. And that's why I have not pursued, you know, going down the guidelines route and revisions until we can get the survey done, and then have this committee that the mayor wants to put together for the ordinance, and have the city council update the ordinance, because there are things they need to consider in that too. Because as Lynn brought up, it hasn't been revised for a while. So
Third time's a charm.
that's right. So that is where we're at, and from a perspective of what we're talking about and whether or not it needs to go in front of city council or not. Obviously, Brooke, I'm gonna have you talk with Devin again, our attorney on this. If we as a board feel it does need to, and I'm kind of inclined that it should too, you know, what we could discuss next month, if we want this to go in front of city council, we could make a recommendation. Not approve it, but we can make a recommendation that for city council to approve this, and then they have to then go through their process. But then it wouldn't be done unless city council would approve it, though. That's a way that we can go about that process, if it's what we want to do in changing it. So Tom, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, I just wanted to ask you, Brooke, so the survey, the feet on the street, should be by the end of this month to start that process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to be going soon, so yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm
Yeah.
pumped about the survey. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So it'll be really nice to get this survey in, and I think that's gonna help a lot of people to understand better our historic district and why and what is. So, anything else? Any new business? All right. Well, hearing none, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
You didn't get a second to that.
I said all in favor, so we're good.
Who said they weren't in favor?
I think it was Tom, but Tom's on the end, he's gonna get out of here.
Yeah, he's out the door.
Here you go, bro.
Oh, thank you.
I keep forgetting to give those to you. Yeah, that thing sounds very exciting.